everyone. Today we are talking about something that quietly shapes so many people's lives. What does it actually mean to be a good person? And more importantly, what happens when you don't believe you are one? And what if the way you've been defining good is the very thing that's keeping you stuck in shame?
Before we jump into our teaching today, let us introduce ourselves. I am Nina Vasquez. I'm a trauma informed coach and guide. And my passion and what I do in the world is I help people heal from unhealed childhood wounds so they can start to step out of survival and into thriving. What about you, Isela?
And I'm Dr. Isela Garcia. I'm a spiritual teacher, an intuitive trauma healing guide, and a medium. And I support people in reconnecting with their truth, their intuition, and really truly understand who they are beyond the conditioning that they've been given. What sets our work apart is that we're not here to tell you what's true for you. We are here to help you uncover it for yourself. So I've been thinking about this quite a bit. And I want to just share with you a story this is what triggered this idea of what does it mean to be a good person? So I'm a medium and I have a friend of a friend who she was a part of a friend group. There were three women and one of them had gotten breast cancer. In hospice actually. By the time they had found it, she was already in stage 4. And it was a very, very emotionally difficult experience for them because she was young. She was like maybe in her early 40s. And so the friend of the friend reached out to her. Well, the friend reached out to my friend and said, it feels like she's just holding on and we're not understanding why she's holding on. Like, obviously we don't want her to go, but she's hurting and we don't understand what's going on. So my friend reached out to me and said, hey, can you connect to people who are in that transition? And I can, because what happens is that when we are in that stage of moving, of transitioning into what I call spirit, it's just being out of the body, you're lifting. And so you're in and out of this physical form. And it's easy for me at that point to connect with people. Now I can connect to people who are like alive and in form, but it's different. It's more like a sensation, a feeling of who they are. But when they are in that transitional period, I can actually have conversations with them if they're willing, because there always has to be that component of their willingness. So I connected with her. And after just trying to figure out, is she holding on and afraid of releasing and transitioning? Finally, I came to this feeling that there was some fear, right? And I mean, I say that and everyone's like, yeah, of course we're afraid of dying, right? But I think that sometimes the fear is based on religious teachings, right? Because there's this belief that if you were not a good person, you're going straight to hell. Too bad for you, right? And if you were a good person, you get to go to heaven. And so I'm like, okay, so I got a sense that this is a fear thing. And I asked if she had grown up religious, and she was Catholic. She'd grown up Catholic. And after the uncovering and kind of conversation back and forth, I had the feeling that she may have had an abortion. And when I kind of leaned into that, and this is all happening at an intuitive level. So when I lean into this experience, I could feel her fear, kind of like just this sort of like feeling, right? And so I'm like, okay, I went to the friend of the friend and I said, by chance, did she have an abortion? And she was like, oh, yeah, she was like 18 or 19 and nobody knew, like in her family, obviously, right? Because that would have been just a horrible thing. Number one, having sex, the horrible thing when you're Catholic. And then worse yet, you get pregnant and then you have an abortion and that's worse than, everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so it wasn't something she ever shared with family. And that's what she was living with. And she had been living with her entire adult life was this shame around having an abortion. And that for sure didn't matter what she did or how she did it, how she lived her life, she was for sure going straight to hell. And so I went back and connected and talked her through that experience and my understanding of what happens when we transition into spirit. And so all that to say is that, and this was years ago, and that fear of was I a good enough person has kept me in this place of reflecting upon that very topic. I think the idea of, am I good enough? Am I a good enough person? What does it mean to be a good person? Is something that sometimes keeps people stuck in shame because
Mhm.
they feel like they've done something through the course of their life that is unforgivable, or that they're in, and for me it feels like an escalator going down and they're running up just trying to be a good person, right? Just they're thriving to just, not, I don't say thriving, they're just seeking that need to validate what it means to be good.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I thought it would be a really good conversation today.
I think it's such a great conversation. And I have been on that escalator. A lot of my life, I stayed in what I would call toxic shame, which is often one of the biggest experiences of someone with complex PTSD. And I was on the escalator trying to run up and catch the, like, if I do this, then I'm a good person. If I do this, I'm a good person. If I do this, and I'm definitely trying to beat out some of the things I did that I thought would make me a bad person. And let's talk about, like, actually where we as humans start to define, or how we come about a definition of what a good person is.
Yeah, and also where, who decided those rules?
Right.
So not only the definition of what
Mhm.
it means to be a good person, but who decided that that's what it meant to be good,
Yeah.
right? Because I think good is learned, it's
Mhm.
not inherent. I think I think family, our family values, and that's conveyed by way of engagement and interactions. Sometimes it's not explicitly taught, and in some families it is. Like this is what Jesus would do, right? Like
Yes.
there's this religious undercurrent that happens in a lot of families where I'm going to teach you what it means to be good, right? And we go into the understanding of morality
Mhm.
and what's right and what's wrong.
Mhm.
And so much of that, I think when I think about this, it goes from like our family, which could be our religious beliefs and practices, and then it goes into society or our community and culture, and even what we're exposed to in terms of, like, social media now these days. I think young people are highly exposed to lots of different perspectives and ideologies that come through their social media inputs, right?
Mhm.
And I also think that there are some things that are just passed down beliefs, that are often unquestioned, that we just, this is what we believe, and this is what you should believe. If you're a good person, these are the things that you do, these are the things that you say, these are the things that we as a family maybe collectively believe, or as someone who is a Christian or someone who
Mhm.
is a Catholic or someone who
Mhm.
is, this is what we believe. And so often and because in the United States, and I think this is a United States cultural experience, there's a binary. So it's like this is right and this is wrong. It's
Mhm.
the same kind of conversation with gender, right? We've got this gender and this gender, and there's nothing in between it. Like there's this binary belief. And I think unfortunately we get so caught up in this is the only right way, and anything outside of this is wrong, that we get stuck in. Actually, I think that's what perpetuates our shame, because
Yeah.
I didn't live in this most highest moral way. This
Mhm.
makes me a bad person.
Yeah. And as Isela and I talk about this and we just explore it here with you, we want you to start asking yourself and reflecting on your earliest years, because that's where our nervous system, our mindset, our beliefs about ourselves and the world are created and developed. So as you reflect, start asking yourself, what was I taught at a young age about being a good person, or what was I taught growing up? And then also kind of checking in to see, was it behavior? Did I have to sacrifice something? Did I have to be obedient? Like for me personally, I had to be a good girl, and good girls, they don't talk back. They're seen and not heard. They operate like they're respectable. But as you were talking, Isella, I wrote down the soup I swam in. When I was growing up, I somehow got the message. It was never spoken to me,
Mhm.
but I got the message that it was good to like shut your emotional state off. It
Oh
was it
yeah.
was it was good to like go to your room. Oh yeah, I guess it was spoken out loud. Like go away with that face and come back when you're happy.
Mhm.
That's a good thing, and it's bad to show up any other way. So just start, as we're talking about this, I want you to reflect on those things for yourself. Mhm.
Yeah, that question about was it behavior or even obedience or even sacrifice? I could look at all three of those, um, and identify ways that I received messages about behavior, like this was an acceptable way to behave. And one
Mhm.
of the stories that comes to mind is I grew up with a lot of fear. I had a mom that was very controlling, and and I was in a chronic state of fear. And so whenever we would go to any event, it could be a family thing, it could be the movies, it didn't matter where, but if we went to a thing, I knew to sit quietly and just wait. And I have ADHD. That's a very hard thing for a kid who just wants to like do this, right? I'm the adult who does this. I stand in line and I sway back and forth.
Mhm.
And so that was really, really hard. And I literally created a system at the movie theaters when I was a little kid. And I still use it today. I'm just not as rigid about it because I don't live in that chronic state of fear anymore. It's just a pattern I've created where I count. So
Mm.
in my mind, I'll count to 10. So one, two, and I count very slowly, and then I can move. And then I count to 10, and then I can move. So I
Mm.
was spacing out, right? My ability, because my mom she would be like, "What's wrong with you?" Right?
Mhm.
And so my aunt adopted a family member who was two, and she'd come from trauma. I mean, we all had trauma, right? But she had a really hard time with sitting still. And I remember we had gone to like a graduation or something, and she was two. She was two, and I remember my mom saying, "She doesn't know how to behave. She needs to be told to sit still and stop doing all that." And I remember that her saying that and was like, okay, the expectation is for me to say, and I already knew that implicitly, right? Because I would
Mhm.
get in trouble if I moved too much.
Mhm.
But when she vocalized or when she verbalized that that was an unacceptable way to be, that became one of my thoughts. Part of my beliefs was that is inappropriate to behave this way. But the baby was two. She was two. That 2-year-olds shouldn't be sitting for that little period of time, right?
Yep.
But I then, we carry these little messages that are given to us as this is right, this is good, and this is wrong.
Yes. And even further, I mean, I don't know if you've ever heard the term stop being a bad boy,
Oh,
or you're
yeah.
being a bad boy today, or you're being a bad girl today. And a child's brain is going to internalize that as, I'm not doing something quote unquote bad. I am bad.
Bad. Yeah.
At the core of me, I am bad. And that creates shame.
Yeah.
Right. So
Sorry, I work with kids. So when
uh,
you say this, I would get 4 and 5-year-olds coming into my classroom because I used to do early childhood education. I went to 0 to 8, primarily preschool though, as a teacher. And I would get little kids that come in and say to me, I'm bad. I'm bad. Like I've already been told by my family, maybe other teachers and other programs, that I am bad. And I'm just here to tell you that.
uh,
Right? So just imagine that for a moment, how we have already defined for ourselves our perceptions of ourselves
yeah.
from the time that we were little. And it's all based on the beliefs around what's good and what's not good.
Right. Yeah. And it's really at the core of it saying, I'm not allowed to just be a human. I have to behave a certain way, and it's different for every culture, every household, every city, you know, it's different for everyone in the US, in different countries, it's all different for everybody's experience. But it's saying, I'm not allowed to just be in the human experience, which, we can talk about developmental levels as a child, right? And things that are very appropriate as they learn to process and be with their own emotional state and things like that. But it's really saying, if I don't fit the mold that you think I should be in, then I'm not good. I'm not a good person.
And then we add in, God is watching you. and then we add in, the what's his name, Santa. I'm like, what's his name, the guy in the red suit, right?
Yeah.
Watching you,
Yeah.
because I see what you're doing.
Yeah.
Santa.
And then you add in like the devil and or the kukui, depending on what culture you were raised in.
Yeah.
And there is fear.
Yes.
There's fear of, if I'm not in line in a certain way, I am going to go to hell, or a monster is going to get me. Something's going to happen to me.
And this idea of being a good person, I think more than anything, I hope that if you're watching this, I want you to kind of think about, what does that mean for you? Because every single one of us is going to have a different experience of this. And you have no idea how many times since that incident with the woman who was, and let me tell you just a side note, I talked her through what happens, and talked about, there is no judgment on the other side. And she literally, like 10 minutes after I had connected with her, she allowed herself to transition. And it was pretty remarkable, and it was meaningful to me because, and as I said before, this notion of what does it mean to be a good person is something that I've had conversations with people, like in this sort of setting where we're just having a dialogue about it, but also with people who are transitioning, because it's such a heavy, I think, reflective journey. Because when we come to a point in our life, we start to take inventory of the choices we've made, the things that we wish we could have done differently, had we known differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we function in this place of right and wrong instead of simply understanding that it's just a part of the journey.
Yeah.
And we don't give ourselves grace. We don't give ourselves, we're not compassionate with ourselves. And I'm not saying that we should reflect back and go, well, it's where we completely are dismissive of the decisions we made, particularly those that we made that caused harm, but to reflect upon those and learn from those experiences. So I wonder what propelled me to do what I did, or what experiences in my life made it such that this seemed like the right thing for me to do at the time.
This is making me think about my journey as a mom. and reflecting back on the mistakes I made as a mother. And I'll say mistakes in air quotes. The choices I made that affected her and affected me and affected our relationship in a negative way. I'll share. I had a 9.5 year no contact relationship with my daughter. And I was punishing myself for that for a long, long time, years, years. I thought it meant that I didn't deserve to have a full, joyful life because I had screwed up so badly.
Mhm.
And that was how I felt back then. And then I met Isela, and I was doing a worthiness challenge with Isela. It was like 21 days. And was it worthiness or forgiveness? I think it was worthiness.
Mhm.
But we were addressing why I thought I was unworthy. It was, anyway, it was a very in-depth 21 days that was really like I was facing my stuff, you know? I remember we could ask for support via text in our group, and I might have asked for it. And Isela said to me in writing, what if, and I really want you to think about this as I share it out loud. What if you were doing the best you could with the consciousness and the awareness that you had at the time? That question was the most powerful question that changed that experience for me. It wasn't immediate. I had to really sit with the question. I had to ask, like, because the very first thing the ego said was, I wasn't doing the best I could. There's no way I was doing the best I could, you know? And the ego wanted to argue with that possibility, right? Because it wanted to hold on to, I'm not a good person. I'm not a good mom. I'm not, wanted to hold on to that story. But when I really took a look at, if I had a different awareness and a different consciousness, I would have made a different choice. It helped me give compassion, like we were talking about a minute ago, compassion to my past self,
Mhm.
compassion to, she would have made a different choice if she had a different awareness and a different level of consciousness at that time. And
Yeah.
so once I could like see that and give myself compassion, I could see that I was just a human being doing the best I could with not what physically I had at the time, but what awareness and consciousness I had at the time. Mhm.
I think this story is so critically important because my guess is that most people have chapters in their life. Like I call these like all of our experiences in our life is kind of like our book, right? And we have these chapters, and within these chapters, we have people that we've encountered. We've had experiences that we've had. We've had big traumas and little difficulties in our life happen within these chapters. And there are chapters within our book that we might want to be like, okay, let's not share that chapter.
Right.
Let's not read that part of the book. And I think most people have those experiences, and we don't
Mhm.
talk about this. And
Yeah.
so the thing for me, as someone who works with others, is I'm going to assume that you're doing the best you know how to do.
Yes.
I'm I'm always going to assume that. And when you tell me the story of something that happened in your 20s and you say, "Oh, I did this horrible thing," and or the one that a lot of women will say, and then I slept with him, and then I slept with him, and then I slept with him, and I'm so like they're waiting for me to react, like
Yeah.
they're waiting for me to judge that, right? And
Mhm.
I don't, because I think that we really do the best we know how to do given our experiences, given our culture, given our traumas and past pains and hurts.
It really helps to, of course, which means make it make sense.
Mhm.
So when we both work with people one on one in groups, we both work with people, and I've heard it many times. I've even had women come to me and say, but I did this and then I did it again. And then I did it again. And they're trying to prove that like they're not a good person because they took all these actions when they were in their 20s. And I am no stranger to the what you just said, which was, drinking a lot, partying a lot, sleeping with people, then, making these quote unquote mistakes back then. And I always say too, it makes sense. It makes sense with the experiences that you had. For me personally, it makes sense that I would be seeking love over and over and over again because I didn't get it, right? We have to make it make sense because at that time, what was driving me? It wasn't, I don't think people are out here saying, you know what? I just don't want to be a good person.
Right.
I just want to go be a bad person, whatever. I mean, it could be that you're rebelling against, what you were raised to be, this like cover up your body and go to church and, you only have that kind of life and you're rebelling against being stuck in a cage, basically. It could be that. But in that case, were you doing the best you could with the awareness and consciousness you had at the time? Absolutely.
I think it's important for us to, well, you had mentioned something about your past version of yourself.
Uh-huh.
That if we could get into the practice of sitting with our past versions of ourselves and recognize that at 15, at 25, at 35, wherever you are on the spectrum of life, that you were doing the best you knew how to do. You were doing the best you knew how to do. And it was based on those prior experiences of life that oftentimes the way we behave, I was most oftentimes, is rooted in our beliefs that then shape our values. And then what that means is that if we are seeking love, connection, affection, which is normally what we are looking for, even in the most difficult situations, we're trying to get it in any way that we can. And so for some women, what happens is, I think there are a lot of people pleasers and people who do for others and care for others. And I think sometimes what comes from that is that I now have a part of my identity is somebody who takes care of everybody else.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so we come to a point in our life, again, in this journey that we call life,
Mhm.
this spectrum of life where we're like, okay, I'm tired, or I'm stretched too thin,
Mhm.
or I don't even know how to put myself first. I don't even know how I'm feeling right now. That when you come to this place of it, there's so much going on here because we come to this place and then we feel bad because if I say no to these things that I've historically always said yes to, then now that makes me a bad person. And what if
Yeah.
they perceive me as a bad person? And this internal struggle, I think, is what prevents people from taking care of themselves,
Mm.
from understanding their own sense of worth, of leaning into the value of who they are, regardless of what's happening in their life and regardless of the decisions and the choices that they made throughout the course of their life. This isn't where I have a mentor that used to say that mea culpa, where like I did these horrible things, I should suffer,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
It's like to release that and to recognize that I did the best I knew how to do given what I know. And now I get to choose.
Yeah, and let's talk about the person that has been uh, getting on the escalator of whatever the pattern is, right? It could be the pattern of I am a good mom if I put myself last and I put everybody in front of me. I am a good contributor to society if I take care of others. So you're getting on that escalator and you're doing, and then it feels like you're always chasing that identity. And then at some point you meet Isela or I, or you would just get exhausted, like Isela said, and you just cannot take it anymore. At some point, you want to get off the escalator,
Mhm.
but it's scary to get off the escalator because that's all you've done. it's scary because people are going to judge you, and you may not get love, attention, and love, attention, and affection like you used to. People validate you. They're like, yeah, she always does everything. Just get Susie to do it. Like, she's going to say, yeah, she's never said no. And so you're afraid to get off. But the getting off part, this is just in my experience. What I notice is it requires that you remember something. It requires that you remember that your worthiness is innate,
Mhm.
and that you were on this escalator that really wasn't going anywhere. And if you get off, that can't change. It was just an unconscious survival strategy that you were trying to be good, a good person, by doing whatever things you were trying to do. And if you get off, you can't change that.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, this idea of worthiness being just inherent, I think is hard for some people to understand.
Yeah.
Um, One of the things that someone who has worked with children for years, is that behavior doesn't indicate, mm, your behavior isn't a way to get connection when I'm working with children. So let me explain that.
Okay.
I'm going to love you because you exist. You can yell, scream, throw things across the room. You can cry for days, right? For hours upon hours and days, because some kiddos have that experience where it's hard to be, whether away from home or there's a lot of trauma. And I'm still going to love you. I'm going to love you when it's hard. I'm going to love you when it's easy. See, we didn't get that kind of, I'm not going to say we, because there may be some who did get that.
Yeah.
A lot of us did not get what I consider as unconditional love. We say
Mhm.
that we do, but we don't. There are conditions to love. There's so many conditions to love. But that idea that I'm going to love you because you exist, most of us did not get that experience. And so the idea that I am deserving of love is often attached to this idea of goodness.
Yeah.
So if I was good enough, then I am deserving of love. But if I wasn't good enough, and this your understanding of what good and bad is your own, because we
Mhm.
all have our own different awareness of that or beliefs around that. And so this is why self-love and understanding that you are inherently worthy. You didn't ever have to prove yourself. You didn't ever have to go and, chase the goodness and take care of everybody else. You never didn't have to do any of those things because you are inherently good. You are inherently God. And so that experience, that understanding sometimes is very difficult for us. And if you're feeling, I want you to just notice what's coming up for you as I say that.
Yeah.
Because for a lot of people, they're like, no, 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 but I did these things. It's kind of like what you were sharing about your journey as a parent,
Yeah.
that you're like, no, 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 but I could have done this, or I should have done this.
Yes. Yes. I felt that in my heart when you said that. When you said when you just explained, like, you are basically, you are God. You know, I think it's hard for people to grasp the worthiness is just as hard as it is to grasp what you said earlier, which is there's no judgment after. That's tough. If you're here with us still, that is a tough thing to believe. Every time I share this concept with someone, it's really challenging for them to believe it. And this is how I share it, because we talked about your past self at 15, 25, whatever age. I want you to imagine yourself as a baby. You're carrying yourself in front of you. Baby. Baby, whatever your name is in your arms. And you're looking down at your baby self. And you notice as you look down at your baby self, there's nothing that that baby self needs to do to be more worthy. They don't need to crawl as soon as possible. They don't need to talk right now. They are just worthy and perfect and 100% whole as they are. We just get the message in whatever soup we're swimming in our whole life that that changes, but it never changes. And it's really hard to believe that. But if you can tell yourself that as a baby, you can tell yourself that now. There's nothing you need to do differently. But we're conditioned. There's probably a whole list right now that you have going on in yourself of like, but I need to have that house, or I should have that. If I have that car, or if I have this lifestyle, if I have, then I'm more worthy. If I have that job, if I have this amount of money, if I have it, the list goes on, and the list is created after your little baby's in your hands.
Mhm.
And so I know that's hard to believe. It was hard to believe for me. It took me quite a while from the first time a coach actually presented it to me. But it is one of the basis of self-compassion.
I think there also comes a time where when you do work on your self-awareness, it's this understanding that, mm, not understanding, it is the commitment to
Mhm.
move in the direction of doing what's best for you. Because you start to realize that you've put everybody else ahead of yourself. And I think that, to be fair, that is the message that most of us women get,
Yes.
that we are expected to put ourselves last. And if you don't, you are selfish. You are selfish. And if you are selfish, then you're a bad person. Selfishness is being bad.
Right.
Right? So this idea of giving of yourself, even at the brink of exhaustion or self-abandonment, is the expectation. And doing anything different than what you have historically done feels very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It feels sometimes life-threatening,
Mhm.
because your brain and your body are not accustomed to you doing something different. And so that
Mhm.
unfamiliarity becomes a threat.
Mhm.
And so learning to just sit with the discomfort of making choices that honor yourself. And then I'm a big fan of mantras. And so for me, when I was first learning to do this and to become aware of how I've identified with being good, right? I would say to myself, this doesn't make me a bad person.
Yeah.
This just means that I'm doing what I need to do right now. And that's okay. That's
Yes.
okay. And so we have to kind of unpack the ways that we have defined what it means to be good, because in truth, there are no rules.
No, there's actually no good or bad.
No, it's just simply learning how to become more aware and, I think, deeply reflective of what has influenced those beliefs that I have. And am I comfortable with that now?
Right.
Are there other perspectives that
Mhm.
I haven't been exposed to? Or maybe someone said something that triggered something within me, and I go, okay, let me kind of think about that a little bit. Let me reflect
Mhm.
upon that, because our intellectual state of awareness, that part that we think and sometimes overthink and overthink and overthink, can be helpful when it comes to just trying to unearth these foundational beliefs around what makes us good and what makes us not good.
Right. It really helps to look at your actions when you're uncovering places where you're trying to be good. For example, a good woman might do XYZ, a good man might do XYZ, and it kind of explore, why do I need to be good right now? For example, I'll share an example for myself. I One of the safety survival strategies I have is being a fawner, people pleaser. And so when I started to say no, when I wanted to say no, there was a little voice inside that was like, "Oh, but you're being like a mean girl,
Hmm.
a bad girl, and you don't want to be bad, you want to be good." And when you start to do things and honor your truth, not what I call self abandon, you're going to hear the inner dialogue about what that means to that inner part of you. And it's like Isela said, I'll feel uncomfortable. I love the mantra thing. I'm a nervous system girl. And Isela, I know she's nervous system too. For me personally, I literally have to create safety. Like I'm just feeling like I'm feeling so activated because I'm about to say no to someone. Uh,
Yeah.
just no, I won't. I don't want to XYZ. No, I don't want to, talk on the phone right now. No, I don't. Like even needing to get off of the phone. No, I should be a good friend and stay on the line with this person, even though I'm wiped out, I'm done. I should be a
Right.
good person. I shouldn't get off the phone. Right. And so it takes some I found that nervous system regulation really helps. That doesn't mean it's not going to feel uncomfortable. Like Isela said, being with the discomfort of doing it the opposite way and
So
pulling
for
it.
someone, Nina, who doesn't understand, when you talk about nervous system, right? What might be happening when you are being active, when you are activated? Okay, so what
Mhm.
would you experience?
Tightness in the throat. Uh, Sometimes some people and me personally, I'll experience like heat rising in my limbs and my arms. My face is getting hot. Shallow breathing sometimes. Nervousness, which might show up as like tightness or like kind of sinking feeling in the belly. So all that can be happening if I'm like, oh, my body's like, it's time to get off this phone. And I'm like, okay, I want to say, okay, I've got to get off. I'm just using that as an example. Some of us stay on the phone too long, or even stay with somebody and you want to go, or you say, yes, I'll pay for that, but you really don't want to. All that's happening because your body is like, yeah, you need to say the truth, woman or man, or whoever you are. Say the truth, speak your truth. And we often will like not do it because that feels uncomfortable. So for me, I think breath is the gateway to help your body. To me, it's the quickest tool that you have. So a couple deep breaths will help you be with that discomfort that Isela is talking about. If you're okay with touch, I like to even just touch myself, taking a deep breath, exhaling. I'm going to say, I got to go now. And afterwards, sometimes when you do something that part of you feels like you're being a bad person for, afterwards you'll have a lot of energy. And so shaking your body out afterwards, like, whew, I just did the thing, that part of you still feels afraid because if you're a bad person, what will happen? Right.
Mhm.
So I find that helps. The moving the body afterwards, like, yeah, we did the thing. We did the thing. We're safe. We're still safe. Right. I still believe I'm a good person.
Mhm.
Or you might even, I mean, this taken a little bit deeper, but I like to drop the label of good or bad.
Mhm.
I'm a human being. Yeah.
I kind of want to just delve a little bit deeper in I just want to mention this
Okay.
nervous system work
Yeah.
because, see, if you are kind of in this intellectual awareness state, part of what happens for a lot of us who overthink and have learned and all the things and have read all the books is that we're trying to heal through the thought, through our thoughts.
Yes.
And what Nina just described is actually connecting with the body and the body's sensations. So the nervousness in the gut, the shallow breathing, the heat in the arms. If you have gone through life with not connecting or dismissing the messages that come through the body, just becoming aware that, oh, I'm on this phone call right now. I have a bajillion things to do. I have to get off, but I want to be a good friend. So we've all been in that situation. I don't know anybody who's not been in a situation where you're like, my friend can go on for 5 hours and I got 15 things I need to do before 5 o'clock today, right?
Yeah.
And so you'll get and we all experience this differently. So maybe your stomach starts to clench and you're like, okay, I don't know how to tell her I need to go because then she's going to get pissed off and she doesn't need this on top of everything else, right? And so we do this internal sort of struggle between our thoughts and all the stories that we're telling ourselves, and our body is giving us messages. And we're like, okay, we shut the body off. And a lot of us learned to shut our body off way back when. Way, way, way when we were children, because we were not given permission to feel what was showing up for us. And so we learned to squish it and disconnect. So when you start to become aware, oh, my stomach is starting to clench right now, or I can feel the tightness in my throat right now. That's a message to me because my body informs me that I get to take action right now. Okay. So then we take that action and we go, oh, you know what? I would love to continue this conversation with you. I have about 4 things that I need to get done in the next like 2 hours. How about I reconnect with you this evening? Or maybe if you need to chat tomorrow, we can reconnect tomorrow. And so like having a way to kind of work through it, right? Like that part in itself is a skill set, but honoring yourself, right? So being with your body, as you mentioned, I think is, for me, I do a lot of tapping. So sometimes I'll just start to do this to just kind of, for me, it's keeping myself grounded. Because for someone who learned to disassociate primarily as a survival strategy, I want to keep myself grounded in here, that I'm not unsafe. I'm just having the perception of feeling like I'm kicking into overwhelm right now.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of tapping. And then once I have that conversation and I get off the phone, you were talking about shaking the energy through the body, because what we're doing is moving through the cycle. We're the entire cycle of the perception of trauma, feeling unsafe. Or so what happens initially is we have a perception of not being safe, of there being something dangerous. And I know it sounds silly, but we do this. This is, even though it's not like something chasing us, if we have patterns from our past, we think that this is going to somehow harm the relationship or sever how somebody's going to feel about us, sever the love connection that we have with this person. So we go into this fight or flight. And so when we get off the phone and we shake that energy out, it helps us be able to move through that entire cycle. The thing that I do is I tell myself that I am okay. I say that I'm okay. All is well. All is well. I am safe. I'm okay. Because for me, that's the completion, and that I didn't have to prove myself, show myself, or be something that I'm not.
Yes, that is the actual rewiring process, right? Because at some point in our lives, especially if it wasn't safe to speak your truth in any time of your life, you learn to not speak it, and that's what became safe. And the opposite, so speaking it, saying something will activate that, signal of it's dangerous to do it this way. I want to share 2 things that came up for me. Number 1, when you first decide, if you decide to start honoring your truth, speaking your truth in this way, and it feels like you're doing it with your voice shaking and you're not doing it as clean and pretty as Isela just gave the example, you might not say it so kindly. You might be abrupt. Hey, you know what? I really have to go. I got a lot. However you do it, it's okay. It's okay if it's not perfect. It might look messy, That's where I am in the process personally of rewiring that, because I didn't have that opportunity for it to look messy when I was younger, right?
Mhm.
So if it looks messy, that it's okay. You're still safe. That's a big deal. Just allowing yourself to do it messy. And then telling yourself, after you do the nervous system work, then telling yourself what's true, right? I'm safe. All is well. We're good. And also you, if you want to go with the good, you might also work on reprogramming if you want. You can, because you get to choose what you believe now, that it's good to honor my truth.
Mhm.
It's good to not pretend that I'm present on this call. Because how many of us has disassociated on the call and don't remember what the heck our friend was saying? And the fact that you do want to be present for as long as you can be present, maybe that's the good way to do it.
The other thing too that is helpful when we are having a difficult time speaking our truth is recognizing that other people get to have their own opinions of us. I think that that is probably one of the greatest challenges when you're learning to really honor yourself.
Mhm.
Like you and I'm doing the best that I can in terms of how I'm conveying my message. I'm not seeking to be harmful or passive aggressive, or like I really am working in the direction of just honoring myself, recognizing that you, the other person, get to have your own opinion about me. We are so attached to, because we've been conditioned to be attached to this idea of what other people will think of me.
Mhm.
And so the idea, for me anyway, has been very this idea of they get to have their own opinion of me, their own ideas and perceptions of me was liberating.
Mhm. I thought of like the word freedom as soon as you
Yeah,
said that. Freedom.
you get to not like me.
Mhm.
You get to not like me.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that I'm not a good person. That doesn't mean, now granted, I do want to just stress that I'm not saying go out there and be a bitch to everybody. I'm not
Don't
saying
go
that.
slapping people.
This isn't like your free ticket to be a bitch. It's that when I come into any experience, I'm going to, the practice for me is being present and then showing up as love.
Yeah.
And loving myself means that I'm not going to self abandon. So I'm not going to do something that I don't want to do because I'm afraid of what you're going to think of me.
Mhm.
And that's hard for people sometimes, because we've all been socially conditioned that this is the right thing, this is the good thing. We
Yes.
need to start to kind of, like that when you draw something in the sand and we just kind of need to wipe it off. We need to start to kind of redefine not good and bad, because religion gets tossed in this quite a bit. This is what the Bible says, this is what the da 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 says, this is what the and really we have to learn how to come from the lens of compassion, and also working to understand other people's experiences of life as
Mhm.
different than your own and just as valid as your own.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we each come with our own lens of experience, and our values and our beliefs are based on that, and that both of us can have very differing ideas and beliefs, and we can still honor what it is that each of us needs.
Yes. That's powerful too. It's a powerful place to live from, because then you're minding your own, meaning I've got an experience going on over here. Somebody else can have a different experience of me and a different experience of life, and I'm still safe.
That doesn't make you wrong, and that
Right.
doesn't make you bad.
Yeah.
And right now, we are in such a state, I think, as a country, in this place of who is right and who is wrong, that we have to come to this awareness of, first off, where did we get these beliefs from?
Right.
What's informing us? What has informed us? What has influenced us to believe this is right and this is wrong? And what is good and what makes me good and what makes me bad?
Yeah.
And what does love really feel like? Because this is part of our screwy experience with love, I think, as children. How have we defined love, right? How have we attached love with
Mhm.
being good,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And what is love truly? And I come from the belief that God is love, but God is within you and within me. Every single person you have is an aspect of source.
Mhm.
And we are inherently good enough and we are love. But we have become so disconnected from our ability to connect to that strength, that wisdom, and that knowing that, the ego is pretty much in charge of the
Uh-huh.
game here. So if we can get quiet and really start to explore these ideas of what is love?
Mhm.
How do I connect to the love that I am? Where did I learn what it means to be a good person?
Mhm.
Um, in what ways do I try to prove my goodness?
Mhm.
And am I self abandoning at times? Or am I actually beginning, because we're all in the process, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Living in alignment
Mhm.
with what I need.
And Isela, you have a couple books that you wanted to share.
Yeah, I'm a strong believer in probably every video that you'll watch with us. I'm a strong believer in awareness. I think all of this is just simply the start of all of this whole sacred journey is the awareness of self. And there's a lot of unpacking that happens with that. And so one of the books that I really like, this is by Lisa Garr. It's Becoming Aware: How to Repattern Your Brain and Revitalize Your Life. This is a really good, just becoming aware. That's your first job. That's it. It's
Mhm.
just becoming aware. Why do I believe what I believe? What is it that I believe? Why do I think this is good and why do I think this is bad? And and I have to tell you that not everybody's going to be happy that you are unpacking these things, because sometimes it goes against some of our cultural values and beliefs. And what happens, and Nina and I've had this conversation recently, is what happens is when we start to explore the awareness of our belief systems and our values and how it shows up in our life, sometimes we swing to the other side and we're like, this is right. This is the only way to be. And
Mhm.
eventually, when you start to really embody the awareness process and the love that you are, you have less connection to other people believing you, believing.
Mhm.
And I don't mean that people shouldn't believe you, but there's no need for us to try to convince anybody else. You
Right.
learn how to be in the presence of others who have different beliefs than you do, and you are completely comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah. So you don't have to pendulum swing as far. You come back to the middle.
Yeah, we do eventually, but know that that's part of the journey.
Part of it.
It's simply
Mhm.
part of the journey. Stop shooting on yourself.
Yep.
Shut. I should do this and I should do this and this is what makes me good. Stop doing that. It's just
Yep.
I'm still learning. I'm figuring it out.
Yep.
The next book is Panache Desai. You Are Enough. I think this is an excellent book of that takes you through the journey of reflecting on the self. And what I love about Panache is that his process is kind of very simplified. Sometimes when you get into kind of this spiritual sort of world of people who are spiritual teachers and gurus and all of those things, you can get lost in the esoteric side of things. That this is a very practical way to really delve deeper into understanding yourself.
Mm. Great. Great. So we're coming to a close today. If you found this conversation impactful, useful, you're now curious and want to explore more about yourself and the way you show up in the world, and you like our style, something about you is calling you towards us, we want to invite you to join our community. We have a community called the Love Being Community, and we'll put the description, we'll put the chorizo We'll put the link in the description box below so you can check it out. If, the community is not right for you, we also have a healing library that's free. You can access some tools in there, maybe some tools we even talked about today in that healing library. But just know that you're not in this alone. Isela and I, we create a space so you can actually do that inner work that we're talking about, the reflection work, the maybe nervous system rewiring and healing work, but not alone in a community. So we hope to see you there.
And just know that you can come exactly as you are.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see you soon.
See you soon. Bye.